In the 1960s, communism was greatly feared. In response, people wanted to invoke patriotism by encouraging a closer relationship between church and state. In 1962, in New York City, one of the most significant cases in the history of the Supreme Court church and state decisions took place, Engel versus Vitale. The New York State Board of Education presented a non-denominational prayer to be recited every morning at all public schools. It stated, "Almighty God, we acknowledge our dependence upon Thee, and we beg Thy blessing upon us, our parents, our teachers, and our country." Even though the students were not forced to participate in the prayer, a group of 10 parents were not accepting of this. The families were non-Christians and argued that these actions of schools were questioning the First Amendment and more specifically the Establishment Clause, which stated, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise therefor."
On one side, Engel, one of the parents of the 10 students, along with different organizations such as the American Ethical Union, the American Jewish Committee, and the Synagogue Council of America, sued the president of the highest school. On the other side of the argument was Vitale, the president of the school. He supported the prayer and believed it was an important aspect of the school. The case was taken to the Warren Court, in which they ruled in the favor of Engel in a 6-1 decision. The 6 justices said it was unconstitutional for a government agency, such as a school or a government agent like public school employees, to require students to recite prayers. They felt that the government was taking their rights away by telling them how and when to pray. They also argued the importance of the separation of church and state and stated that it directly contradicted the Establishment Clause. On the other hand, Justice Stewart did not believe that this prayer was breaking the laws of the Constitution because students were not forced to say the prayer. Therefore, the government had not truly established a religion. Furthermore, he stated that the non-denominational prayer was an acknowledgement of the country's religious heritage. If this case had taken place in the 20s, the outcome would have been significantly different because the courts were conservative. In the 20s, religion was more important than it was in the 60s. During the time of the Engel versus Vitale case, the society was more open and Americans were less obsessed about tradition.
This case was significant for many reasons. It was one of the first cases that questioned the religious activities in schools that were sponsored by the government. In this case, the government was effectively prohibited from sponsoring officials in schools for the first time. The case set a precedent and influenced many cases to come, such as Wallace vs. Jaffrey, Lee vs. Wiseman, and Santa Fe vs. Doe. In Wallace vs. Jaffrey, another conflict of religion and state arose in which the Supreme Court found it unconstitutional for there to be a 1-minute prayer or meditation at school. In Lee vs. Wiseman, the Supreme Court found it unconstitutional for there to be a clergy-led prayers at public high school graduation ceremonies. And finally, in Santa Fe vs. Doe, the Supreme Court found it unconstitutional for there to be a student-led prayer at a high school football game. As we can see, all of these cases took place because the Engel vs. Vitale case inspired others to stand up for their religious beliefs. Overall, people view this as an important case in the sense that it needed to be taken care of. However, they did not realize the effect it would have on public schools around the nation today.